My name is Murli. I'm the Vice President of Cloud Division in PISP Solution. Today we'll be looking about what is cloud security and what are the threats of cloud security and its proposed solutions. So first we'll be reading about what is the agenda for today. The agenda for today is we'll see what's cloud computing. I'll give a small introduction. Then we'll see what are the implementations of the cloud. Next, we'll see what are the various models of the cloud. After that, the most important topic, what are the top threats to the cloud security. We'll assess the vulnerabilities and I'll suggest you the control measures. Now, all these have come throughout my years of experience talking to various people in cloud computing arena where they have experienced similar difficulties in hosting cloud solutions. So we thought of compiling together a few threats, important threats which are plaguing cloud computing solutions, and with the help of Cloud Security Alliance, which they have identified 9 top threats to the cloud computing. I have put forward the explanation of
Unmuted.
9 top threats. So, yeah. Before starting it, we'll see what is the cloud. So, the cloud is a pool of computing resources such as servers, application development platforms, storage devices, load balancers, and virtual machines that are shared among cloud users. Now you can imagine all the services that we get in the internet from various companies, such as we take about Gmail. Yes, Gmail is a cloud service where all the users are hosted on the cloud, and the services such as mailing, forwarding, etc. are done through the cloud itself. So that is the very famous example of what is cloud computing. And it has enormous benefits, like the corporate sector, during the recession time, it had huge cost incurring on each and every operation of theirs. So they thought of decreasing the cost day-wise. So they have incorporated cloud into their organization, where the capital expenditures in terms of buying, installing and maintaining computational resources reduced to a great extent. So this not only helps corporate companies, or it helps the individuals to access the cloud services because of the low cost in delivering the cloud services. Now this is a brief diagram about what cloud computing does. You see all the operations which were done before individually have come under the cloud. You see monitoring the resources, management of the content, or collaboration with the workflows, or you can say the communication with your teammates, or otherwise creating finance charts. And apart from this, you want to store it, stored in the database. Everything comes under the cloud, and the cloud is connected to various devices all over the world, such as desktops, servers, laptops, and these days the cloud computing is penetrating into tablets and handheld smartphones also. We'll see what are the implementations of the cloud. There are 3 popular implementations of the cloud. One which is called infrastructure as a service. The second one is platform as a service. And third one is a software as a service. So what are these? Infrastructure as a service is nothing but renting of the computing and the storage area in the regular cloud computing system. So what is the renting of computing and storage? Just imagine that if you have huge pictures and videos, huge content which occupies gigabytes and terabytes of space. You don't have to buy huge storage devices to store all your content into one place. That incurs cost. So what do? You rent a particular cloud storage service where they'll be storing your content for you, and according to the storage space they'll be taking the money from you. So this is infrastructure as a service, and Amazon Web Service, Google Drive, the Dropbox are all the famous examples of infrastructure as a service. The second one, platform as a service. Platform as a service is a service which hosts the application. Now, if you have created an application by yourself, you want a server to host it, and you want certain resources to maintain and run it. You don't have to buy a server for that purpose, or you don't have to put up a maintenance guy, to maintain that particular server. You can just rent it. So that's renting a remote platform hosting service. Okay. So Ruby on Rails applications are hosted through this method, and Amazon Web Services provides this platform as a service also. Okay, these are the important examples. Third one, the software as a service. Software as a service is that you want to access a service, you don't have to buy a software, you can just rent a software for your purpose. The best example would be like, where whatever you use just Gmail. So a Gmail is a regular service which we use in day-to-day life. So that's a software as a service from Google. Number two, Salesforce CRM. Salesforce is a CRM package where it has a marketing agenda such as no software should be installed. Everything is pre-installed already, and you just have to access the service and create applications by yourself. So that's the very famous example of software as a service. So you don't buy softwares, you just rent the software services, and the cloud computing providers run the software on their own systems and provide you the necessary services. So these are the different implementations of the cloud, and the most popular also. This diagram shows you the difference between all these three things that we have discussed. The software as a service, where examples, as I told you, the email, the CRM, you can collaborate with your colleagues, for example, the Google. So if you have Google Docs, such as spreadsheets, the Word, or otherwise the Google PPTs, so you can share between your colleagues, and whatever they edit can be collaborated with the other colleagues also. So that's the collaborative effort of Google by providing software as a service. And the last one is the enterprise resource package, where many companies provide their ERP packages in the cloud. So with this facility, the licensing cost has diminished to the 10th of the percentage of what was being earlier charged. So the consumers are benefited, the companies are benefited also. Number two, the platform as a service. So as I've discussed, application development can be done using the platform as a service. Decision support, the web and streaming videos can be also put on platform as a service. So streaming videos, you can just say YouTube. YouTube is a platform as a service. So if a consumer produces videos and he has to upload into a particular video sharing service, he can use YouTube for that purpose. So when one uploads into the YouTube, it is shared among all the similar users, okay, which the user wants to share. So YouTube is a platform as a service which hosts your own videos. And number three, infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service, as I told you, all for the storage purposes and all for the backup purposes, infrastructure as a service is being used, and it has reduced the hardware cost to a great effect. Next, models of the cloud. So these are the three famous models of the cloud. One which is known as the public cloud, second is a private cloud, and third is a hybrid cloud. So companies these days are opting for public cloud, private, or the hybrid cloud as and when required. So what is a public cloud? If the cloud implementation is done outside the premises of an organization, so that's the public cloud. For example, Amazon Cloud Services. Now, the implementation of the cloud services is outside the premises of the organization, and the organization authorities, users, are given access, okay, to those servers by using certain protocols. So this is a public cloud. But wherein a private cloud is contained inside an organization. So that means no other users apart from the people within the organization and who have authority to access the information of the organization can log into the private cloud. That means, now just take an example of a company, IBM. Okay, IBM has its own private cloud, whereas it has been accessible to only employees of the IBM with certain securities and restrictions. So this was mainly considered because a general public cloud is vulnerable to outside attacks, and the data which is sensitive to the organizations wouldn't be safe if it is outside the premises of the organization. So hence, private cloud was introduced to protect the data which cannot be outside the organization at all. So that is where private cloud comes into the picture. So what is the greatest example of the private cloud in any organization? It is the enterprise virtualization of PCs. So whatever the users use, they connect to the VPN and they start using the cloud which is in the organization itself. Third one is a hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud is gaining popularity because it is part public and part private. Part public in the sense, so whatever security is put over the private cloud, it has to access the internet, such as the ISP has to be accessed outside of the organization, and all the DSNs have to be accessed outside of the organization. So that's why hybrid cloud is the popular term today, because it has to be a part public and a part private. And most cloud implementations these days are hybrid clouds itself. So this diagram clearly explains what is a private cloud and a public cloud, and how does hybrid cloud utilize the both features of private and public cloud. So we'll come to the top threats to the cloud security. As I've said, the Cloud Security Alliance, the CSA, has outlined top 9 threats to the cloud security. So these are the top 9 threats to the cloud security. Number 1 is the data breach. Number 2 is the data loss. Number 3 is account or service traffic hijacking. Next is the insecure interfaces, denial of service, malicious insiders, abuse of cloud services, insufficient due diligence, and shared technologies vulnerabilities. I'll be explaining all these with examples and the control measures to prevent these particular threats. So let's go into it. First one is a data breach. Okay. So what is a data breach? It's generally called a security incident where sensitive, protected, or confidential data is copied, transmitted, viewed, stolen, or used by an individual unauthorized to do so. So that's a data breach. So the famous examples is of LinkedIn. LinkedIn, there was a data breach in 2012 where 6.5 million user accounts, passwords were stolen by Russian cyber criminals and they were put online. LinkedIn was very quick to respond and it had issued a statement for all the users to change the passwords immediately. But it was a great data breach in many years to come. Second is the Amazon's service called Zappos. Zappos, it is estimated that around 24 million customers were asked to change the passwords one fine day because they had suspected that there was a data breach in the Zappos systems. So data breach is a very serious security incident. So what are the vulnerabilities? What do they steal actually? So they steal the personal identifiable information, that is the PII. So what does the PII contain? It contains the name of the user, the date of birth of the user, the credit card information, and other financial information also. So all these informations are collected and can be maliciously used by cyber criminals to gain access into the user systems and manipulate whatever they want. So this is a very serious threat of stealing of personally identifiable information. Number two, loss of encryption keys. It might be that the encryption keys which is used to encode the passwords can also be stolen. Secret keys such as secure socket layer, that's SSL, the file encryption keys, or the customer private keys can also be stolen to disclose the passwords to the malicious attackers. And third one, and the most famous one, is the brute force attack. So it's a technique used by hackers to break passwords. They run sophisticated software to break the passwords and collect the passwords and do malicious activities. So these sophisticated software can scan through millions of passwords in an hour and can probably attack and grab out the original password from those list of passwords that they have gained. So this is the brute force attack, which is a highly coded and computed program which is run by hackers. So how to control these type of threats? So this slide explains you the controls for the loss of PII. So there are many controls where PII can be minimized. So first we'll be seeing about how do we approach this by using a trusted third-party source. So these are the few sources, not necessarily all these sources can be used, but which are most important when we're discussing over here. So first one is PRIME. PRIME is an abbreviation for Privacy and Identity Management in Europe, which provides privacy. That means it preserves authentication using the trusted third party called the IDP. So IDP is the trusted third party that PRIME will be using. So it is not only in Europe, it is gaining popularity in other countries also. So the third party called IDP is being used by PRIME to control the loss of PII. Number two is the Windows card space. So Windows card space is another measure to minimize the loss of PII. So what does it do? It treats every digital identity as a security token. So these tokens prove to the service provider that the claims belong to the user presenting them. So we see all the security tokens in different systems. Okay, so these security tokens actually change from time and time, providing user authenticity to the person who is providing it. So that's Windows card space approach. And third one is the OpenID approach. OpenID is another form of minimizing the loss, which decentralizes sales authentication protocol. So it's a decentralization of authentication protocol. But for all these approaches, there is a drawback. So the drawback is that since these are of all third-party sources, so that means if the third party is broken or if the third party is compromised, then all the users' passwords and the personal information is compromised. Okay, so I'll discuss about another set of approaches which is not using trusted third party. So the second set of approaches without using trusted third party. So in that, the first one is the active bundle scheme. So what does the active bundle scheme do? It is a self-integrity check to find if the data is tampered or not. Now, if the integrity is compromised, then it will destroy the data itself by methods called apoptosis and evaporation. So the data is vanished then and there itself if the self-integrity is compromised. And that can be used by, without using any trusted third party, that's called active bundle scheme. The other ones such as the encrypted data is used to authenticate without disclosing the unencrypted identity data. So there are differences between unencrypted and encrypted data, so which it predicates and used to authenticate. And third one is the multi-party computing. So whenever you use a distributed computing, okay, and approaching the security issues, then the loss would be minimized. So that's the approaches without using a trusted third party. What are the other controls for data breach? The all popular controls are nothing but such as fragmentation. So what is a fragmentation technique? A fragmentation technique is nothing but it takes this sensitive data and it's broken into insignificant fragments. That means all the fragments together, when combined, it gives significant information. Or otherwise, an individual fragment does not give any significant information by itself. So then after that, the fragments are scattered in a redundant fashion across the different sites over distributed systems. Now this prevents from any malicious attacker not to identify any particular information from a particular fragment, because only the combination of the fragments can be done by the software which has broken the fragments into different pieces. So in that way, the security keys can be kept in guidance. The second one is digital signature. Digital signature with RSA algorithm is used to secure the data when the data is being transferred over the internet. So we see a lot of digital signatures these days while protecting the documents, then signing the MOUs, etc., where the security of that document is protected by these digital signatures. Next one is homomorphic encryption. What is a homomorphic encryption? This technique, it is possible to process encrypted data like a plain text without revealing the actual plain text at all. So that's a homomorphic encryption and is another control of data breach. And the last one, the very famous encryption, which uses the advanced encryption system techniques such as the AES and SSL, secure socket layer technology. So with this encryption, controls for the data breach can be done. So these are all about the vulnerabilities and the control measures of data breach. Second important threat is data loss. So what is data loss? Data loss is a second leading threat, as many attackers who gain access to the information will delete the data. So that means the data is completely lost forever without any backup of the data which is present. So if there is no data backup, the data is lost forever. So one of the famous examples of data loss includes Hotmail. So all the users of Hotmail one fine day suffered data loss, where many customers reported to have seen a clean inbox when logged in. So the data which was not backed up in the servers and which was not backed up by the users was completely lost. The other important one is Amazon, where Amazon, it was a relatively minimal amount of data loss, but nonetheless it amounted to a significant data loss during that period of Amazon. So the data loss vulnerabilities. So what are the most common vulnerabilities of data loss? So as discussed earlier too, there might be a loss of encryption keys. So that means all the keys used to protect the passwords, the secret keys such as SSL or the file encryption keys or the customer private keys are lost completely. Number two, cloud service termination. So cloud service termination is a very rare example, but it has happened during earlier years, such as an example called Nirvanix. There was a cloud service provider which provided storage called Nirvanix, and one fine day in 2013 it had announced that it was terminating the cloud service. So all the users of Nirvanix were given a couple of days to store or back up their data immediately. Now just imagine if the users have not seen that message, or if the users are not aware about the closure of the services, so all the data would be lost forever. So this is a very serious threat where the cloud service provider himself terminates the agreement and shuts down the storage providers feature. And the third one is the hardware or the software failure on the part of the cloud service provider. So it happened once that such as the cloud storage service, which was called a company called SwissDisk. It had completely closed down the service because there was a huge software failure on its part, and the significant amount of the data was lost. The next one is a natural disaster. Natural disaster such as floods, hurricanes and earthquakes. So if the data center is in this particular zone which is prone to all these natural disasters, and there are no sufficient backups in other places, then data is completely lost due to these natural disasters. So that's why many companies have been providing backups in different places where there are minimum number of natural disasters, such as Google stores somewhere around 7 backups of its data in various geographical locations all around the world. So that indeed is a very good step, because even if in one particular zone there is an earthquake or a flood, immediately the data is backed up from another location, which minimizes the data loss completely. And the last one is the human error. Human error is the most common, which the cloud service providers, employees, can accidentally delete the data. So when they accidentally delete the data, and if the data has no backup, then data is completely lost. So these are the quite most common vulnerabilities which can happen during data loss. So what are the control measures? The control measures are nothing but business continuity planning. Okay, this applies to people who terminate the cloud service one fine day. So the BCP should be validated by the small and the medium level companies that the cloud service would be there for a certain period of time. And number two, the local and the distributed backup. So as I have specified, to minimize the natural disasters and the data loss, there should be a minimum number of backups in the local networks and the distributed networks so as to replace the data lost immediately. So these are the controls that can be done to minimize data loss. The third most important threat is account or service traffic hijacking. So what is account or service traffic hijacking? So the definition explains that the attacker gains access to the user's credential, such as the user's data, which will be manipulated so that eavesdropping occurs, and which can return falsified information to the particular client which is requesting the information, and the clients will be redirected to illegitimate sites, okay, which is a problem of the account or service traffic hijacking. So the examples, in 2010 Amazon faced an attack that allowed the hackers to steal session IDs that grant users access to their accounts after entering the passwords. Now this left the client's credentials exposed completely to the hackers. So what are the vulnerabilities in these cases? Vulnerabilities in these cases are one listed over here. The first one, which is called the session hijacking. The second one is the SQL injection. Third one, the cross-site scripting, man-in-the-middle attack, a wrapping attack problem, malware injection attack, social engineering attack, and phishing attack. So we'll go through all of these one with simple examples. So what is session hijacking? Session hijacking occurs when the HTTPS protocol, that means Secured Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is not used completely throughout the session. That means it might be used only at the login time and the other session is exposed to the normal HTTP, and the session can be hijacked, which cannot be secured at all. So this is the session hijacking, and for example, cloud email services can be attacked whenever there is no secured HTTP protocol associated with it. Number two is SQL injections. So what is SQL injection? It is an exploitation of the web server by injecting malicious code to retrieve sensitive information from the database, which can be remotely executed by certain commands by the hackers. So the hackers use a code to inject into the database and retrieve these sensitive information, which can be remotely controlled, and the session can be hijacked. So those are known as SQL injections. Third one, the cross-site scripting. So cross-site scripting such as scripts such as JavaScript, the VB script, the Visual Basic script, the ActiveX script, or HTML can be embedded into a dynamic web page where the person who is using that page can be attacked by those particular scripts unknowingly. So by using this cross-site scripting, the particular account or session can be hijacked. Next one is the man-in-the-middle attack. So if the secure socket layer, the SSL, is not properly configured, the attacker accesses the data exchange between two parties, and the data communication which is being done between two parties among the data centers can be heard by the man-in-the-middle attack. So this is completely eavesdropping. And the next one is wrapping attack problem. So what is a wrapping attack problem? It's between a web browser and a server. It alters the SOAP messages between the two persons, that is the user and the attacker. So in this wrapping attack problem, whenever this particular protocol is exposed to the malicious hacker, then he might use it to his own benefit. Malware injection attack. The malware injection attack is something like it appears that the particular session which is being run is a valid instance in the cloud, but it is a malware which is an exact copy of the valid instance. And if the attacker is successful, then simultaneous sessions will be running, and the attacker can eavesdrop into the session and can gain your information completely. So this is a malware injection. Next one is a social engineering attack, where it is most commonly done by humans with their own communications, such as revealing of the passwords in social networking sites and between human interactions. So the hackers can access those particular passwords by stealing those human interactions completely. So that's a social engineering attack. And the last one, and the most famous that we know, is the phishing attack. A phishing attack is nothing but manipulating a web page and redirecting it to a false link to get sensitive data. It happens during banking and the financial transactions, where the login page is similar to the official login page of that particular bank, and the user unknowingly enters the valuable information which redirects to another link which stores the username and the password. So in that sense, the banking transactions username and the password has been completely misappropriated by the user in the hands of the attacker. So that's popular phishing attacks that will be done in the banking and the financial sites. So what are the controls? Controls for SQL injection. We can use the parameterized queries. We can validate the input first, and while using stored procedures, so we can control the chances of SQL injections. What are the controls of cross-site scripting? We can use hash algorithms. We can put a strong isolation between the VMs, and we can use a strong, good configured SSL connection. The last one, the controls for insecure authentication, is we can use a two-factor authentication or the zero knowledge proof. The zero knowledge proof is nothing but asking some certain information from the user that he only knows. For example, whenever we lose a password, we are given a set of questions to be answered that only we as a user know. So that's a zero knowledge proof authentication control. So what are the controls for man-in-the-middle attack? So for the man-in-the-middle attack, there should be a proper SSL configuration, and if the SSL is not properly configured, then the data communication between authorized parties can be heard. So by configuring the SSL, the certain tests can be run between the authorized parties. For the wrapping attack, we can add a stamp vet, to the SOAP header, to the SOAP header, and with this we can prevent the wrapping attack. And for the malware injection, we can use FAT system architecture. That in that way the malware cannot be injected into the system. And for social engineering, it is quite suggested that the user credentials and the passwords shouldn't be shared in all the social networking sites. So these are the controls for the account or service traffic hijacking. So this concludes the first part of the vulnerabilities and the controls of the most popular threats in the cloud computing arena. So in the part 2, we'll continue studying about these threats. Till then, hope you found this video useful. Thank you for now. Goodbye.